Hello and welcome back to Raised by Giants. I'm Ryder Lee. Welcome everyone in the chat. We are live and wow, do we have an amazing show for you guys here today for the 200th episode special. And I just got the notification on YouTube yesterday that for my 3-year anniversary. So we're on 3 years and it's the 200th episode and I'm really looking forward to it. And I couldn't have done this without the help from some of the people that's on this panel here today. And we have the best round table on the internet has ever seen, right? Once again. So introducing first with ladies first, of course, she's an author, teacher, publisher, consultant, neuropathic physician, and researcher of consciousness. You can find her work on her YouTube channel, Penny Kelly. Penny, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you. How have you been?
Be here. Hi, everybody out there. And hi, all of you guys. It's good to be with you again.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Up next, he's a renowned filmmaker, author, scholar, writer, director, considered to be a modern day Indiana Jones for his worldwide quest to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny via ancient societies and artifacts. He's been featured on the History Channel and has produced original content for Gaia TV and is also my writer and producer of our upcoming documentary, JFKX, and is probably the most famous person I've ever hung out with, Jay Weidner. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, congrats on 200 shows.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Thanks for being here. Next up, we have a gentleman that I've really looked up to for a really long time. He has helped me with a lot in the beginning when I first started my show. He brought me on his channel without even asking who I was. He's a philosopher, researcher, educator, spiritual teacher, and visionary on occult and esoteric studies and many other topics he dives into on his YouTube channel. Wayne Steiger, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you, my friend.
Honor, my friend, and congrats, man, on the 200. I see about another, 2,000 coming for you, but yeah, and honored to be amongst such brilliant minds here. Thank you.
2,000. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle that. That's going to be a lot of years coming. And last, but definitely not least, you know him, you love him. He's the creator of Adapt 2030 channel on YouTube. He discusses energetic changes on Earth as the sun repeats a 400-year cycle of low activity, affecting global crop production, the economy, and everyone on the planet as society resets. David DuByne, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for stopping in. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And again, if you're going to go for the 2000th episode, that gives us 30 years. And I really pray that we are all here in 30 years after these changes we're about to experience.
I'm an optimist.
Pleasure for everybody to make it through this. Truly, it would.
Yeah, it would be really wild. And well, this crazy panel of amazing researchers and content producers doesn't break the internet here today. I don't know what will, but it's been a little over a year since we were all last together, and a lot has transpired, to say the least. We're a little bit of halfway through the year here, halfway through 2023. So I want to pose a question to each of you. What should we be looking for to happen in the second half of 2023 here? And I want to get everyone's thoughts on this. But Penny, I want to start with you. Let's jump to you first so you can kind of set the tone for our discussion here. What do you see happening for the rest of 2023? More of the same or what's going on there?
I'm going to say more of the same and a little bit more difficult, maybe a lot more difficult. I see this is something that I keep seeing again and again. There's some kind of change in Washington, D.C. It's big, it's messy, and it's not and there's another change next year. So that's the first thing. Another thing that I see is, I guess I'll call it financial chaos and a big deepening of the anger that I'm seeing, hearing, and actually experiencing in a lot of people. Their fuse is so short. It's like, don't create any sparks. So that really concerns me. I see problems with health. We'll just say with big health challenges, big health problems, and food. There's not enough food. There's not enough of anything. And people are trying to keep food on the shelf, and a lot of people are growing food. I think I just saw statistics where it was, we typically had 35% of the population in the US growing food. Now it's up to 75 to 85%. People are knowing something. Maybe that's David's fault or David's accomplishment.
David influencing people to do the right thing, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, we can talk about those, but I'm really interested in what the other guys are seeing.
Jay, what do you see happening for the rest of 2023?
Well, try to be as careful as I can here. Yeah, I hear that we're going to be running out of pharmaceuticals here. There's been a slowdown from China. We don't have factories anymore. And there's a lot of evidence that even now they're putting placebos in because they can't replace the drug. And that's going to break out here soon. And then the pharmaceutical companies are going to have to come clean and say, we haven't got any of this stuff. It's going to be mostly painkillers, hormones. So anyone who's taking hormones on a daily basis is going to be in some serious trouble as they go backwards. And it's kind of a quiet crisis right now, but it's brewing and getting stronger.
Thank you. Wayne, what do you see happening rest of 2023?
I think my background's in payment. So, here, I guess it will be on Saturday. The Federal Reserve will start going to what they call the system Fed now. It's the first step that now leads to the collapse of the greenback, and it is going to be the backup currency. Biden has already signed the executive orders for such. And I think for the American consumer, it's going to be a real wake-up call. So, and I think that within that, it can go a number of different ways. And finally, I think that here in the United States is what we saw in Moscow over the weekend. I think there's going to be a big shakeup in our government. I think it's going to really rock the three tenets of what our government is about. And who knows what 24 is going to be like.
David, what do you see happening, my friend?
It depends on how each of those events that everybody spoke about already gets, or they wanted to amplify. So remember that Hungatonga eruption last year, 10% moisture added to the atmosphere. If you look at the depletion in the ozone down in the southern hemisphere, it's orders of magnitude less, or I should say decrease, than it normally is. It's not even really, it's just very, very beginning of the cusp of the season of the ozone hole season. Generally, what you consider the ozone hole maximum would be somewhere in October or late September, early October. We're already getting near those numbers now, if you trace back through the last prior years. So the runaway ozone depletion event will be a global cascading event that will be used, push and pull, in conjunction with all of these other things, in addition to, like Penny, what you said with the food, to explain away the crop losses, to explain away hyperinflation. It'll be pushed in and pulled out and reinserted and blended in with other events to get the maximum fear out of it. Unfortunately, but you already see where it's going.
Do you think that we have to worry about natural disasters or manufactured natural disasters? Because we know that they have the ability to create storms. They can pretty much control the weather however they want. Dave, do you think that we have to worry about that at any point toward the end of this year?
Most technologies could be used to amplify events in case the human domain gets out of control. And when I say that, there's cause, react, solution, effect. If the human does not obey and the directive of where it's supposed to be pushed with the stimulus, if humanity wakes up for a better point and starts to go the other direction, like, whoa, uncontrollable thought, that amplification in extremes in whatever it would be, forest fires, volcanic eruption, twisting of weather in the jet streams and cloud cells, in addition to the moisture that's in the atmosphere and where everything's already cavitating and tweaking along 20 south and 20 north anyway. I think there'll be that blend. If humanity can't be controlled, it'll be put through extremes to get people to stop thinking about and fear for their lives. And then, you know, you're going to swing the pendulum this way to survival, and then they'll pull you back in the middle of the narrative. I keep seeing this again and again. When humanity starts to think for itself, something other much larger rolls in on top to deflect or distract, is a better way, I guess.
Can I interject in this, Ryder, to that?
Perfect. Yes.
We are this generation of humanity, of which we're all part of. It's established. We are now witnessing the magnetic excursion of our poles. I mean, the South Pole is now almost to the Indian Ocean. The North magnetic pole will be in Russia. I mean, it's accelerating its movement. And the thing that when we talk about weather and we talk about crops, we talk about everything else, is that we never talk about what magnetism, electromagnetic pools of our pole, of our magnetosphere, how that upsets everything where weather is concerned. I mean, you're potentially talking, no one is witnessing something like this. I mean, you're talking potentially an upheaval.
And the human, and go on with that, continue that thought of the magnetic hemispheres of the brain and the human as well being affected by that same polarity change.
Good point.
I think it's the cause of the mental illness increase lately, is the magnetic pole excursion. I think it's causing the wiring somehow is getting scrambled, especially people who don't, aren't conscious of what they're doing and don't meditate and try to get themselves somewhat sedated. If they let themselves get out of control, which they are now doing, they actually go completely out of control now.
Is that a cause for the anger we're seeing in people? I mean, the brutality and the nuts is crazy.
Yeah, I think it's magnetic fields interfering with the brain function. Actually,
I would go even further than that. Consciousness is frequency. Okay, so the frequency that your brain operates at determines the kind of response you can have and the kind of perception that your brain will allow. But the big factor in that, big factor, is nutrition. Without nutrition, you can't maintain frequencies. That's why we eat, because food is frequency. And there's a lot of waste that gets produced just to, be able to extract a few frequencies by tuning. But without food and without good food, we're going down. We have been going down for a long time. And I think that we're headed into a crisis, and all the pressures that we were all just mentioning, talking about, add to that. When you're under stress, your nutritional banks or supply in the body are used up at 4 times their normal rate. And if you're not replacing at 4 times your normal, then your perception becomes entirely skewed. Depression, anger, irritation, you keep pressing that button, it goes eventually. There's only 2 things that the brain is capable of, and that's pain and pleasure. Everything is a version of those 2 things. And if you start pressing that pain button, which they've done a lot of research with that kind of thing, down the road, very quickly, actually, not down the road, you end up with rage. And following that is temporary insanity. And temporary insanity is a protective stage for consciousness, so that the human in temporary insanity doesn't know that he hurt someone. We are geared to love, not hurt one another. So we're headed in a really difficult direction.
I agree, absolutely. And it almost seems like it's an inhuman type of control structure that's happening, but not inhuman in the way that people think that it actually is. I don't think that it's an actual extraterrestrial race that is controlling us or the earth. I think that it's a consciousness that is possibly in control, and they're able to transfer this might sound a little woo woo, but it's just what I've been really thinking about here recently. It's a consciousness that's been transferred into a human-like shell, like an avatar, in order for that consciousness to walk around in our reality here. They wouldn't be able to just come here from a different planet and be physical beings and walk around here. They would have to have some kind of doll body avatar that looks very similar to us. And that's where the whole thought and the idea and the concept comes from, with people saying that they're already amongst us, they're already here. Well, they probably are, but they look exactly like us. They're the same entity. They just have a different conscious level. Me and David were talking about this yesterday. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
Wow. Well, let me just say one thing, and then I want to hear what the other guys say. There are many. There's at least 3 or 4 dozen different races of people here with us already. They're all over the cosmos. We're not the only ones. So let's just say that we agree on that to start with. And then I think the bigger thing that really is important is consciousness is catchy. When you have frequencies that come into contact with one another, they either harmonize, they get into constructive interference or destructive interference, or they end up in what's called, they produce binaural frequencies, and those frequencies then interact and produce trinaural and quadnaural and quinaural. We don't understand yet consciousness, or most people do not understand how it works. So if you have a bad apple, everybody in that family is going to be similar, have similar responses and attitudes, etc. Because consciousness is, we copy. That's how we learn, we copy. So there are people here that are really destructive. It's not just ETs, we're all from somewhere else, but there's a whole slew of good people here working their buns off, trying to get us to wake up and take responsibility and step into our own power. So,
David, what do you think about this issue? Do you think that we are being controlled by an extraterrestrial race, like a lot of people seem to believe that we are, or is it something different? Is it a consciousness? Because it's hard to believe that for some people that it's just human beings doing this to human beings. So
maybe I'll step back into frequency for a second here. Now, with the changes in the frequency that are happening on the sun and truly across our solar system, I'm wondering, with that frequency resonance, as it changes and our perception changes in the brain, that things that were not in our visual field of view suddenly become visible. And this is why the programming of get ready for these things that are not really of either sex are being programmed into us. Because the field of view, we might suddenly just start to see something one day it's always here. The frequencies are layered in, but we're just not tuned into that one. And suddenly, boom, we start to see these entities that were always here, but we just weren't in tune with them, but suddenly we are. So how do you explain that to the masses, that you're going to start to see something that's not, it's sort of similar to what you did, it is, it's not, it is. I mean, I really think there's a lot of things that are going to go through visually and auditorially. So what you're going to start to hear things also. So this frequency is moving through, and these changes in our sun, the magnetic field on our planet are changing. I think what we hear, literally what we hear, and what we see are also going to change from what was considered established norms through the last, say, 50, 100, 150 years until now. I think we're going to come into some rapid changes with the magnetic field. And at the same time, there's going to be rapid changes in what we see, hear, and observe around us. So explain that to the global populace without causing a panic.
No, that's absolutely exactly right. You can take infrared pictures of these entities that are in the sky around us, and I frequently do. And And there are literally trillions of entities that are invisible to us, all around us all the time. We live at the bottom of a sea of a plasma, which extends outward even past the orbit of the moon, and it contains all these millions, trillions of entities who, some notice us, some don't care about us, and some notice us in a bad way. And we got to be careful of that too. So I look at it more of a dimensional plane, and that people mistake encounters with these invisible entities. So sometimes you can see them as aliens and all this other stuff.
Wayne, what do you think about this UFO and extraterrestrial narrative that's going around right now? I mean, is it going to play a role in the coming years, possibly even play a role in the 2024 presidential election? What's your thoughts on, because it's a threat narrative, right? It's a controlled opposition, CIA threat narrative that they're trying to play on humanity. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think what I'm focused in on, what I teach on my channel, I teach basically about, demons, angels, these unseen beings that have controlled our consciousness for thousands of years. I mean, that's what the Bible is written about. It's not written about physical man as much as it's written about these unseen beings having influence and control upon us. So in one aspect of it, we're very well versed in that perception of alien life. What's an angel? What's a demon? But what I think we're seeing today is that, because I come out of 50 years of Christianity, is that we're seeing a collapse of a belief system. And if there is such a disclosure, then it's going to challenge that perception, because there's a lot of people, and I speak of here in America, that truly believe we're in the tribulation. I mean, that's kind of the underlying theme in the churches, is that what we're witnessing is Daniel, his prophecy of the 70 weeks come to pass. So it's really where cognitive dissonance becomes into play, because there's going to be some people who just can't handle this. And I think that that's where you see this complete shutdown.
Jay, we've been keeping a really close eye on the CIA Pentagon disclosure narrative, more specifically the threat narrative. And there's this new guy, Kurish, I think his name's Kurish. That's a new whistleblower that seems to just regurgitate and repeat what everyone's been saying for years now, just repackage. What do you think is the end goal with this CIA ran disclosure? Because it's never what it seems to be.
Well, I think we have to understand that they've gone too far, the elites, and they can't go back now, because if they go back or they let go of power, there will be a complete examination of what they were doing, and they will all go to jail. So they can't relent power. They're not going to relent power. And I think this is a PSYOP done, and I can't prove that. It's just my opinion. I think this is a PSYOP to throw us off. That guy, Brood, whatever he is, I'm sorry, man. He used really loose language. He was never specific about anything, and I didn't buy anything that he said. I thought he himself was a PSYOP, and so I think that they're planning to raise the ante, and so what they have is like 18 poker tables going, and each one they're going to choose to play at is their next game, and so this is now their alien game that they're playing. Not saying there isn't aliens or anything like that. I'm just saying that this thing reeks of a MK Ultra PSYOP.
I agree.
Like that. I like that, Jay.
I agree. I mean, we know the Air Force has been running MK Ultra programs for a really long time, and the Project Blue Beam stuff was actually a MK Ultra sub project. Subliminally put the holographic image directly into the subject's head. Now,
That's
David,
right.
Not sure if you've been, I'm sure you actually have been paying attention to the UFO narratives, but it's basically been co-opted by the CIA, and they hire intermediaries to give the public information to disseminate the information that they're giving to the public. And they get to basically be a whistleblower, even though they're just regurgitating other people's information. And now they can pretty much classify any anomalies in the sky as UFOs, right? Unidentified objects, foreign satellites can now be UFOs. Weather balloons are now UFOs. Space trash can be UFOs. I mean, you can throw a trash can up into the air and take a super blurry photo of it, and it's a UFO, right? So where do you think that they're heading with all of this talk and this ramping up of UFOs and extraterrestrials, David?
Free energy. I wouldn't say free energy, it's fuel-less generators and magnetic motors to unveil that technology without telling everybody, oh, by the way, we put those patents in the closet from the 1880s and the 1890s. Really worked on it when Wardenclyffe Tower was around, and Marconi got into the wireless technologies as well, and Dr. Brown with the antigravitics in the 1960s. Sorry, we kept that from you. That was for military application, but because, as Wayne had referenced here, we are going to flip over to the Fed now, but at the same time, there's a new overnight interest rate called SOFR, S-O-F-R. That's also going to be the new benchmark rates between what was the LIBOR, which is the London Interbank Overnight Lending Rate. But between that, there's about 0.02% of difference on those, somewhere around $700 quadrillion in derivative contracts. So to reset an entire system, A, they don't match. B, they want to take everybody to universal basic income. And the only way they're going to do that after the planet gets completely bankrupt and reset is bring out free energy. And that way you could still have the things that you would need in your home, but they're not going to come out and say, by the way, we shelved all this for 100+ years and we made you go mine rare earth minerals and put up these junky solar panels when we could have had something half the size of this desk in your home that could have run that from the 1910s, and we would have never had to put a copper cable above our heads, which when you also talked about the inhabitation of a consciousness in that, I'm wondering if there was super connected in the rollout of everything. But I really think it's not going to be soft disclosure about, yeah, there's other beings out there in the skies. It's going to be about trying to bring that tech that we've developed over the last 120 years into the home without having too many questions asked, and get everybody onto this universal basic income. And you will be beholden to those generators or those ones who are manufacturing it if your social credit score is good enough. And you can see how this whole twisted world is moving forward here. And I think that's really what it's about. It's not about saying that there's somebody from Martians are coming back or whatnot. And Wayne, you raised your hands. I saw you with it. So what are you going to go at?
No, I mean, this seems like a simulation. I mean, because it comes to one end, and that is total control of us. Required reading in high school, George Orwell, 1984. Who'd ever thought that we'd actually see it? And we did it to ourselves. I think that's what this internet is about. I mean, I'm turned 68 this last week. I was one of those guys that helped develop this thing called the internet. We didn't, back in the 90s, we didn't know what it could do. And now here, nearly 25 years, I look back and I think, my God, what did we create here? What did we unleash? And if it wasn't us, then consciousness is energy. Energy is never going to go wasted. Then that means someone is either cultivating this or using this for a purpose. And it just seems like anywhere you look today, it's just more bad news. And it seems to be pushing us towards, I go back to Deagle.com. When Deagle was up there, are we about on the precipice of something that's going to really impact humanity in 2024? Because if you go by Deagle, the United States will see nearly a 200 million reduction in population. GDP will be down 71%. Is this what all these shortages are about? Is this merely a precursor of something that they have to have in place when this thing is finally unlatched? I don't know. There's brilliant minds here I'd be curious
In a
to see
word,
what y'all.
yes. In a word, yes, that's what's going on. And it's all perfectly triangulated to happen exactly in the sequence that they want. And there are, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of people in my community that are dying in the last month, 5 or 6 months. And it's really increased. And it's not just disease, it's all sorts of weird accidents and strange things. And why did you do that? You know, and also an increase in mental illness. So I think that is all coupled together with, like, you know, the food shortages and then the prescription drug shortages, which I believe is going to really drive the mental problem to skyrocket when the drugs stop. So you know, it's time to go local and time to take care of your family and your community, and probably stay close to home.
This is anecdotal to that, Jay. My wife works in the hospice industry. It's exploding.
Yeah.
And here's the frightening statistic. They're having a difficult time finding the type of drugs that help many people when they die, particularly in hospice. It's usually you've got a disease that's ravaging their body. Can't get the pain medication. The other thing that they're seeing is the reduction in age for the need for hospice services. So there is something taking place. No one wants to address it. I don't think anyone would know how to begin to address it, but it's happening.
You know, just as a side, I highly suggest that everybody start growing poppies. You don't need to do anything to them. You just make tea out of them. And that's an excellent painkiller. It's totally legal to grow poppies, and it's totally legal to crush them up at the end of the year and make tea out of them. And it will be the painkiller of the future. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, wild lettuce as well. That's one you really want to know. That's an old Cherokee painkiller. A lot of people understand wild lettuce. Again, it's legal.
Yeah.
It doesn't really give you like a high, and it's non-addictive. It's just a pain sedative. Wild lettuce. You can grow it anywhere. I guarantee you're going to find it somewhere growing in a field near you.
Let me point out something that has never really been pointed out. I'm really good friends with a medical investigator, and she said to me that the hospitals and the doctors stopped giving out painkillers which was about 7 years ago now, at the same exact time that the fentanyl began flooding in. So that was an interesting statistic. I hadn't really thought about it.
Wow. You know, one of the things that I avoided saying, but I'm going to bring it up. One of the things I see repeatedly is that there's some kind of flooding, big flooding, not over the whole US like the solar flash would indicate, but some sort of like area flooding. I cannot see where that is. I don't know why it doesn't become clear what's under that water, but there's a lot of stuff floating in it, and it looks like it's on a coastline. So it looks like it's in the US. I think you, Ryder, said are we looking at some sort of natural disaster? And I think we are. And maybe it's volcanoes, maybe it's earthquakes, but something really, really difficult is coming our way, on top of what I think looks like civil war next year across the whole US.
Yeah, that's why they don't care about the debt or anything like that, because they believe, the elites believe, and I can show you exact evidence that there's some kind of disaster coming. They believe it's a solar disaster, and they're prepping for it. But they've been doing it ever since 1957, 1958. They put together the geophysical year, and they sent people out all over the earth to do measurements and everything. And they came back, and NASA was created the next year, and the deep underground bases were begun the next year. And you can just see the traces of the whole thing. And they discovered that there was a periodic solar disaster that causes massive fires, and it's periodic every 12,000 years.
Yeah, there's actually more than that. There was a 6,000-year event every 6,000. There's another one every 3,000. There's another one every 2,500. But the big one is every 12. So
Well, we're due because the countdown is here. We're at
I know.
12,000 years.
I know. You know, I do this thing called the language of energy, and it's similar to it's symbolism basically, and I understand the green energy and the language of the birds, and the language of energy is the same thing. And I keep looking at, okay, what does that tell us about what's coming? And basically it says you don't know anything about what goes on in a natural system. We have wasted our time with all kinds of entertainment and silly stuff that doesn't really do anything, instead of developing consciousness and understanding how do we get off the planet or get inside. And do we want to get inside if the continents are roaming around the surface, ramming around? Go ahead, Wayne.
So, yeah, I used to be heavily into Nibiru, the whole, ninth planet, the thing coming around. And I do a lot of meditation. I did it, 10 years ago. And I was meditating one day, and it dawned on me that if any of this is true, the whole planet coming in and destruction of the earth, we're still talking the death of billions of people here. And I often wonder, how does consciousness absorb that much death in such a small constricted time? It has to have reverberation, as above, so below, as below, so above. I was talking on my channel this morning that if you follow that, there must be an upheaval already taking place in the heavens.
Oh,
Well,
there it is.
when I was writing my book, A Monument to the End of Time, one thing that we kept looking into mythologies about eschatology, and one thing we kept coming up against was that somehow if you're alive at the end of the world, that was a good thing. And there was an Irish quote, "May you be alive at the end of the world," a Celtic phrase. And all over in India and North American Indians, we kept finding this idea that the apocalypse was the mass death of everybody, but it was somehow this incredible spiritual event. And it's unclear as to what that really means. I'm just telling you what I discovered, looking at mythology.
A mass ascension event, an after-death ascension.
Well,
That's
not
what it sounds like.
necessarily.
It's like an alchemical experiment where there has to be enough souls for this thing to work. And they're willing to blow everything on getting enough things here for it to happen. And they're perfectly kind of obvious in their writings that that's what they're doing. They're trying to make a new human. And that's what they're saying. They're perfectly clear about what their intentions are.
That's
I did
perfect.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Brian.
go Wayne.
No. I was just saying that 5 years ago, I did a video that Earth was being terraformed.
Yeah.
Yep. And they got the new tenant. It's ready to move in, and we ain't on the lease.
And that's
Well-
a perfect segue into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, because that is AI in this.
Oh, Ryder, could I stop you for a second before
yeah.
we jump in there?
Go ahead, David.
The research and study that I've been doing shows that, speaking of these longer time cycles, if we go back to 79 AD, gas giants form what is perceived from Earth as a perfect square in the sky with Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune.
Yeah.
The Earth will pass through this, where the sun will be on one side of us, and this second magnetic field of interlooping of the gas giants we're going to pass through that. Now, that will occur in October of 2024. The actual date's October 23rd of 2024. Nobody can really explain what this will do to us as a human. Again, we'll come back to that frequency and brain function. Don't know what's going to happen to the top 2 miles of the crust, but according to, those who follow global liquefaction events and things called mud floods or, reset. You can go back into Tartaria, it would be a good example. A lot of lost history, especially across China, things buried. But as we swing through this dual magnetic field, there's going to be some repercussion. And then The scariest thing, okay, that's set A, and we're going to come through that dual magnetic field, squeaking right through the middle of it. But as we pass out of that, coming into, say, April, somewhere around the April of 2025, as we come in front of the sun, we're the only thing in front of the sun. All of the gas giants are behind us. The sun's behind us. Everything's pulling whatever space debris straight into the face of our planet until we come back around to the safety behind the sun once again. So between what would be liquefaction events and magnetic field disturbances, we don't know what's going to happen with the ionosphere or some kind of electrical conduit between the sun, Earth, and then our crust. Could that be disrupted? There's a lot of unknowns that would be happening at this time, but electrical ferocity is one guaranteed thing to increase. Like the electrical storms, when you heard in the past people would run for their lives when they saw it gathering on the horizon, I think we're going to be at that point again. When you even see a storm system coming in, you're going to batten down the hatches and try to get to your basement.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the mysteries of the Cross of Henday, which I wrote 2 books about, is the exploding sun panel has 4 a square around it of 4 what look like flames or like planets on fire. And we've always wondered what the significance of the square for the 4 different objects around the exploding sun were. And I think that may be the signal that that's when the time is.
Yeah, there's not going to be a complete nullification of the magnetic field on either of those. Will be a transference of it. So they got the potentiality from one body to another body in a magnetic field. And remember, these are going to be looping toroid fields. So nothing's going to be linear shooting across space. It's going to be a looping field. And from the projections that are, the 2 looping fields come in and they overloop on themselves in something called the block wall. And we're going to apparently pass through that. And when it goes in, we're going to get into a 0 magnetic field state on our planet for anywhere between seconds, minutes, not even an hour. It's going to be just seconds to minutes as this looping field comes over and interloops on itself. We're going to pass straight through that and we'll be out of it as quickly as we're into it. But it's going to be a significant event. Now, what will happen with our poles? What will happen again with our magnetic fields in our brains?
What's going to happen, with our minds? I mean, the cosmic rays already been proven drives us nuts. That's why we can't do space travel.
Well, wait a minute. That's let me say something about
October 23rd, 2024.
Okay, so Kundalini, when you have a full-blown Kundalini event, what that is in the body is it's an electromagnetic event that moves up through you, and it's roaring. It's like a jet engine. It's like not standing under Niagara Falls. It's a force that allows you to momentarily, because it only takes a few seconds, just like you were saying, David, you have an opportunity at that point to be completely rewired. Your entire brain and your entire body, your chemistry, your hormones, all of your neurotransmitters, everything gets rewired in that moment, unless you're in a bad mood, in which case you degenerate instead of take a step up. So I think personally, the possibility that we move through that looping, whatever it is, those 2 toroids, or we get a shot directly from the sun, or all of those cosmic rays come in, you have to be ready up here mentally to reprogram yourself at a higher level. And you have the oompah to do it at that moment. So I think we should be talking about how do we get to that place where we're sassy enough to say, this is what I'm doing. This is how I am. This is what I'm becoming. And you just keep holding that until when that energy hits, you know it. You do know it because it increases your heart rate. I think my heart rate would go up to somewhere around 200 beats a minute back then. Your blood pressure, the heat in the body, parts of the body could melt off. They have in the past, not for me, but for others. An arm or a leg, or the person bursts into flame. It's called idiopathic. They don't know where it comes from. Well, it comes from you have a massive charge moving through the body, and it short circuits and starts a fire. So you burn up from the inside out. But if you're ready, or if you're in this place of great love, that's the magic key to being able to take that energy and revamp yourself and move from third dimensional being to fourth or fifth or even sixth. So
It's a real bifurcation of the species.
it is.
I ask you, do you think that the changing magnetic field is associated with this coming square of the large gas giants? Do you think that might be what's causing it?
I think that adds to it. A square is symbolically, that is your
Yes.
first stability, your first area where you can step into and count on the energies circulating in a particular way. If you're directing those energies, yeah, you can. The triangle, the pyramid is the other one that allows you to route energy. But I think we live in boxes for a reason. I think we're moving to the sphere for a reason, but I think we have this massive opportunity coming at us to use those energies, and that all of those things together are a factor. I don't think anything can be different or it won't work. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, Jay, if you like to, or anybody, I put the images of the 2024 alignment in the chat box, so feel free to look at that. And also, Penny, to dovetail on that, Aquarius is the only, if you look at the star maps from the 15 and 1600s, Aquarius is the only one that shows the actual Birkeland current flow out to one of the eyes of Pisces and one of the fish in Pisces.
Oh, wow.
Of the other 12 zodiac, there's nothing coming out, but it is so clean that the pouring out of the water bear is showing some sort of Birkeland current that flows directly from the star system itself in Aquarius somewhere. The seed point, the Chinese put the seed point of human consciousness up in the Big Dipper. That's why the cult of the Big Dipper is such a big thing. They still worship that in the Emperor's Mandate of the Heavens. But that pouring out, that Birkeland current goes right into Pisces. And it's interesting how we're exiting out of, these different symbols that you see through. What are we exiting out of? The fish was the Jesus Christ with the fish. So that era of the birth of Christ coming through, and then, exiting out into the water bear. But how do those two connected? And why is it so symbolic right now that we're in this?
I think the water bearer, that's Aquarius.
It's not really water. It's more of an energy flow. And they couldn't explain it with the water tipping out, but I think flows of energies are what that was explained.
Exactly. Yeah. If you read some of the ancient work, they talk about the great ocean. And they're talking about the ocean of space. It's full of energy currents and waves, just like on the regular ocean. So that's it's misunderstood. It's not about water. It's about the pouring out. Aquarius is the pouring out of massive amounts of currents and waves of frequency onto whatever the humanity that exists at the time.
So Dave, do you think that this alignment could cause a Birkeland current to go between the sun and these gas giants?
Yeah, something like this. There's going to be a transference of magnetism. Now, you notice that looks like the top of the Kabbalah also. Like if you were to strip and just have the top of the Kabbalah. So I believe that's the beginning of the cycle marking. Now you have to spin through the rest and find the bottom segment of it, where it would come in with the square on the bottom with the triangle that, points downward on that. And then that would be the completion of the cycle. I just haven't.
It's not just the Kabbalah. You've got the sun at Chippereth. And that's exactly where the sun is in the tree of life.
Yeah, right. You got the tree of life right there. Now, where's the bottom completion of it? I haven't really gone out and spun out in the diagrams that far. I'm too busy growing my vegetables right now.
Good for you.
No, that's no joke. Like I'm staying alive through this event. I want to see the plasma displays in the skies. My whole goal is to stay alive through this so I can witness it.
I know. I'm right there, growing my own food and working my butt off to really put things together and help other people. I don't want to be the only one here. So
besides that, you get a great tan and a good workout.
Yeah, that's true.
The bottom of the Kabbalah would technically be Earth.
Right.
That's the foundation stone is Earth. So
that's where we sit on the alignments there. So you can see that there could be something significant happen. In the last time, just for FYI, the last time that this same alignment occurred was 79 AD, and it was 1 degree of arc off. So it's not exactly the same as 79 AD. It's 1 degree arc difference than it was then. So if you're looking at arc minutes through the heavens there, 360 degree arc minutes, 1 minute back. So
That's
360
pretty cool.
cycles back would bring us back to 79 AD, but we're talking what, 360,000 years approximately? No, it would be 720,000 years through one loop of that. You know?
Wow.
Well, this is the first time I've heard of anyone talking about the fact of the Earth in transition in the center of this, where the sun will be in a neutral state of magnetism. Yeah, that's significant. I mean, you got the consciousness of ever how many souls will be on this planet at that time. I mean, wow, that's significant. I'd like to get more into this.
Yeah.
But then what happens to the people that don't have souls?
Well, that's just
that
it.
are
Yeah.
that are inorganic beings.
Ah.
Right? Which ones are no longer going to be here? Are the inorganic ones going to be destroyed, or the organic ones are going to be destroyed?
Well, what's a soul? How do you define what's a soul?
Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Right. So everything that exists, every form, is made of consciousness. It's inherent. It's the intent within. The signature of your frequencies is the signature of your consciousness. And that's
how do you get a consciousness, though? You would have to be an organic being. I don't believe that everyone has a consciousness. I don't believe that everyone has what you would call a soul.
not
That's my
everyone
personal belief.
has a human consciousness that fits what year is this? 2023 in the United States of America. There are other forms of consciousness, lots of them. Stones, plants, animals, planets, just the air, fire, water, all those are forms of consciousness, and they can be communicated with. So to say that that's an inorganic being, I think that those kinds of definitions are, I'll say, old science, where science is catching up, but it has a long way to go, a long way. They don't understand the connections. They don't understand the natural world. We really have a lot to learn. I'll say it nicely. We have a lot to learn. And I think that's exciting. I'm very excited about the future.
I absolutely believe, Penny, that, plants and trees and everything that's organic has a consciousness. I just think that it's plausible that there are people that are walking around that does not have a consciousness.
No, they're conscious. It's just not the kind of consciousness that we have. Okay? Even a robot has consciousness.
But that would be a synthetic consciousness,
No.
not a real organic consciousness.
Okay, so we can talk about levels of consciousness and consciousness signatures. It doesn't have the signature of a Ryder Lee or a Wayne.
Computers will never have consciousness. Never. AI will never have consciousness. You need to have a body to have consciousness.
We'll see.
No, they won't. I mean, I'm a programmer. 40 years of programming. I know how computers work. It's just ones and zeros, and they're never going to figure anything out beyond whatever you program them to figure out. They're never going to extrapolate into consciousness reality. It's not going to happen, and that's why I'm not worried about AI becoming conscious. I'm worried about bad people using AI.
Bingo.
For bad reasons. Yeah.
But consciousness is frequency, and that machine, that computer, has some frequency in it. It is
many frequencies. A computer has probably 600-700 different things with different frequencies going on. Chips and capacitors and all the stuff that makes up a computer is all giving off. That's why you got to be careful around a computer, because you're getting so many weird frequencies.
I know. Yeah, mine crashes regularly. But I think we have to expand our definition of consciousness. Are we talking about human consciousness? Hang on here. I forgot to turn my phone off.
Sorry.
Or are we talking about some other kind of consciousness?
Well, there's only one kind of consciousness, and when the consciousness is in a dog, it's dog consciousness, and when it's in a cat, it's cat consciousness. When it's in a human, it's human consciousness. And that's where instincts come from. That's why the cat knows what to do without ever having a parent around to teach it. And so consciousness is this multifaceted thing that's different within each organism. That's why you have to have a body to be conscious.
Well,
Tree
to
can be
have human
conscious. It has a body.
if you're going to have human consciousness, you have to have a human body.
That's
So,
absolutely right.
yeah. Okay. I agree with that.
Yep.
Wayne, what do you think about this concept? Do you think that every human on the planet has a consciousness?
I don't think they had the same soul or originate. And little anecdote to this, F. Paul Wilson, who I think is a brilliant science fiction writer, in his book Night World, the thing that hit the earth was basically there is a consciousness, but it's not how we perceive it. There's two great consciousness. And because there was a really bad dude about ready to take, and Jay, I say you shake your head. Have you read the book Night World?
Oh yeah, I love it.
It's I recommend it to all your whole audience, Ryder. You really should read that book, Night World. Then you're going to get hooked into the Repairman Jack. But my point is, this whole discussion for the last hour is that it seems like we're being herded down into a funnel that represents death for us, death for a lot of people. And I don't know, in my spirit, that's wrong. There's a purpose. Are we about to be sacrificed? Is this what we're talking about? The sacrifice of of galactic proportion? If not, then this is insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is. It's a ritual sacrifice. That's what's going on, and it's by a group of people who follow a spiritual dogma, one that you and I probably don't agree with, but it's there. And the older I get and the more I look into it, the more I realize that there is a extremely nefarious force loose on this planet, and it seeks to control our very soul. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, I looked at it very closely, and that's my only conclusion. And it really doesn't care about life either, by the way. It likes death. It is a death cult, as Alex Jones calls it. And I think that is exactly right. It's a cult that worships death.
I think you're right.
Alex Jones has been right about a lot of stuff, and he was most recently right about the frogs, which is crazy. Everyone made fun of him for the frogs, but he was right about the frogs. Things are crazy. Things are getting
20 years.
But Dave, how do you think that AI is going to play a role in our future? I mean, we already have AI chats, AI rendered photos, AI rendered videos. I feel like it's really going to blur the lines between reality and fantasy, as if it already hasn't blurred the lines enough already. So should we be afraid of AI, Dave?
If you look at it the way that it's supposed to be taken to make everything as fake as it can be, so then there'll need to be human validators to sit next to you to say, yes, I'm a human, validated as a human, and I saw this person, David, as a human, make the content. So it's approved by me as a human validator that David made the content as a human, and this is validated as a human-made piece of content. This is the direction it's going to need to go. Because it's not going to take much longer, even by when we talk October of 2024 here, it'll be so good, the deep fakes, that you won't even know what's happening as, comets or I shouldn't say comets, but bolides and meteorites come rolling in. What's the news? What's real? What's fake? It hit over in Paris? Oh, something hit here. Will you even know? Because the newscasters will look real. I mean, they did that fake thing with the Pentagon getting hit like a couple of weeks ago, and it dropped stock market in Asia when it was still nighttime here. I really believe
I still have Biden's tape, by the way, where he stuck his hand right through the blue screen. I mean,
that stuff
what the freak was that about? I mean,
went right through the microphone.
I need to.
Doesn't this diminish us?
You made that piece of content. That's where it's going. It's disruption everywhere in terms of business, and
we just
the whole world's being
that
disrupted
same
at the
thing.
same time. I'm sorry, Penny. Last thought here.
Go ahead.
I can't believe that AI is rolling out at the same time to disrupt everything that we know in the human domain. At the same time, everything's being disrupted in the climate domain and the magnetic field domain. And it's all overlapping on top of this series of complete disruptions, a scatter pattern, interference pattern, just to keep everybody distracted from what's really going on. Because we could all say no and the death cult would stop.
No, this is like being at the roulette wheel and it keeps on hitting 00. You're going, wait a minute, it's been 57 times, it's been 00,
I think that's what all those consciousnesses are here to do, is to come together and become a force to make something happen that we decide. And that's why they're trying to make sure that there's not too many of us around, because consciousness is power.
As we figure out everything, which is what we're all doing, they throw interference patterns at us in a constant way, and that's what's going on. And that's when I think that the disclosure alien thing is just another interference pattern to stop us one more time from, because they're really afraid of us all realizing what's going on at the same moment, and they think they're prepared for it, but I don't think they are. And so we have to be ready to defend our turf, but not attack anyone. We have to, find ways like David said about free energy. We need to create our own forms of energy, because what they're giving us is not going to work. So they're creating a gigantic thing of chaos to stop us from having our consciousness fully awakened.
Well, could I ask a quick question on that? What would be more destructive? A nuclear war, nuclear exchange, or two AIs going to war with each other? Like, what would the repercussions be of two AIs going to war with each other, and what destruction they could wreak across humanity here versus actually simply dropping a thermonuclear warhead on somewhere? Which one would be more destructive?
Oh, conflicting AI by far.
Yeah, I was going to say the nuke would be the merciful approach.
Right.
I mean,
That's
get
gonna
it
happen.
over in a flash,
Yeah.
What's going to prevent one AI from starting a war with another AI? What? Of course, they're going to have superiority thing where you got that fact wrong, and now you got that fact wrong, and they can start an argument, and that's for sure going to happen.
I did the GTP with Bard, Google's artificial AI, and I got to tell you, I was somewhat amazed at its perception of spirituality. It has a pretty good handle on this concept of what we term as humans as God. And I went, yeah. At what point does it start outthinking us?
Yeah, but it's just going through literature and picking it up.
Bingo, that's exactly what it's done.
It's not really coming up with any concepts. I got in an argument with ChatGPT about the moon landing. I asked how they could take pictures on the moon without fogging the film, and they said, well, Kodak altered the film, and I said, no, they didn't. I brought out a statement from Kodak. They didn't alter the film, and we got in a serious argument. Went on for like 3 hours, and finally at the end it concluded, I kid you not, that perhaps the spokesperson for Kodak did not understand what the word altered means. That's where it finally ended up. I was like, wow, they weaseled its way out of it.
Well, it's really funny how this really progressed, because a lot of people in the community were talking about, oh, I'll never let AI run the show. I'll never do anything with AI. And then it seems like overnight, it became a thing, and everyone's using it. Everyone's using ChatGPT. Everyone's using these AI generated images and these AI generated videos. So it really shows not very much backbone from us as a human species there.
You got Alexa, you don't have to worry about it.
Wow.
I hear
the size of it
from my Hollywood friends that we're less than a year away from you being able to sit down at your computer and go, I want the lead actor to look sort of like Tom Cruise and John Wayne. I want the lead woman to look a little bit like Joan Crawford. And then pretty soon you've got, I want this to be the plot, and it will generate an entire 2-hour movie for you. And they say that there's a company called NVIDIA, which is 1 year away from this. It's called
I'm invested in NVIDIA.
Voice to video. It's called.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I know this is tied to it, but you think about Sophia. She's been granted citizenship into a country. That's AI. And, this all looks like it's to diminish humankind, because now they've got artificial robots that is your perfect mate. You don't have to interact with another human. I mean,
Turn to soul, that's a terrible mistake, because we come here to get together with one another in order to learn, in order to be challenged, in order to make a core change. I mean, that's really what it's all about here. So that'd be
That's really what it's about, stopping is the core change right there by introducing the robotics into the human element.
Yeah.
But you got a younger generation. Well, Ryder, your generation is more adaptive to having an artificial mate as opposed to actually, because that's what they do already. Everything is online.
Yep. And then whenever this technology is just being released to the public, how long have they secretly been using the technology all along? Because it seems like every time that anything is released for public use, they've already been using it for years and years and years beforehand. So then that makes you rethink everything that you've seen.
Well, iRobot, they told
us. Have they
us
already created a full-length movie like Jay was talking about that they're going to be able to do in next year? Have they already done that in the past? How much of the music have they artificially created?
It's called 911.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of their test things where they created fake things going on, and everybody thought it was real. It was just a movie, and they've been doing it for a long time. So, and they're going to
a robot in every home.
Yeah, they just repeated that with the whole Prigozhin revolt in Russia. That was all fake.
Isn't this the dog wagging the tail?
I know.
I mean,
I know.
It's like I've seen this before.
Yeah.
You have to remember that this whole thing started in Elizabethan England. After when the fire of London burned down everything, and then the people that settled that area, they saw the Shakespearean plays, and they realized that drama and plays and all that could be used on the world stage. And so they started the East India Trading Company and went out and used theater to conquer all those countries that they conquered, India and China and all the rest. And the people never knew it. They didn't know what was going on, but that's how all this started. And today it's all the way manifest to the point where we don't know what's real anymore.
I agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Penny, you were just talking about a civil war that you've seen that's going to happen in 2024. Does this revolve around the 2024 election? What have you seen that's going to happen there? And is this going to be wrapped up in with the civil war and this being a part of the 2024 election?
That's part of it. It's a combination of things: financial crisis, food crisis, and the governmental crisis. And that whole crisis seems to be, it's like we're the last ones to get on board with the Civil War. But we finally do that. It's already happening other places. And I've thought, no, we're going to be able to figure it out. We're going to be able to get through without the war. But I don't think so. It looks like we're headed right toward it. And we have, I don't know what the 2 presidential changes are in there. between now and 2025. That's, to me, that's a wild card, but I see that again and again. It's like, what happened there? Something funky, something that people were just so shocked. We've gotten to a point where we are barely able to respond coherently and to think our way through with any kind of critical thinking. And all of a sudden it just poof, it explodes and people are fighting in mostly in the cities. So those of you like, you know, growing your own food out in the boonies, probably going to have people coming by saying, can I get some food? But there's a lot of uproar in 2024, and that extends into 2025. And
So,
then
Penny,
the breakup of
describe-
the US.
Can you
So you-
describe the food shortages? Because if they come out here to get the food, they're going to get a lot of minerals in terms from our end here. They won't get vegetables. They'll get minerals
those
off
minerals
the periodic
packaged?
chart there.
No lead shortage.
So describe
Okay.
that food shortage for me. I'm just curious, you know, you're tuned into that. So I'm trying to see if our pictures kind of snap together, because I'm focused on the food mainly.
Yeah, there's two things that there's no fresh food. There's some stored food. People do grow things, but it looked like there's a shortage of real, I'm going to say nutrition. I think in terms of nutrition. And so are we getting the nutrition that we need? There's no corn. So a lot of the processed stuff, or they're very limited. The prices have gone up to some ridiculous level. There's a very big shortage of wheat. And there seems to be hardly any meat at all. And so all of that, those are the big few things. The fresh is coming from local and it's limited. And then the corn, the wheat, and the meat, that's what's not there.
Well, that's happening right now. Like
Is that bad?
Wheat production is at a 100-year low in the United States, and the corn crop got wiped
Oh.
out because of drought and cold temperatures so far up around the Great Lakes. If corn spiked some dollars, that's the amount that it jumped up after the USDA came out with their crop forecasting just last week is astounding. It shook markets.
Okay, we got rain for the first time in like 2 months, just the last 2 days. So maybe 3 days. So what are you seeing in terms of food? There was no coffee. That was a big deal. So what do you
Plenty of food
see?
here? You know, I live out in a farming community and I live near the Amish, and I almost I almost don't know anybody who doesn't grow their own food or have animals and thing. Like, but the sheeps are getting a little out of control out here. You know, they're starting to, but sheep are, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
And the bigger your animals get, or the larger your animals get, I'm just happy to have turkey and geese and chickens, you know, but you know, if you're going to have something substantial on a meat source, it's a lot of extra work, you know, to have a farm and run it to produce food. It's a full-time thing.
Yeah, we have a farm. I have a farm. We grow food for market, go to the Kalamazoo Farmers Market. What we've noticed a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, it was jammed. And then we had a medical issue. And now hardly anybody is willing to go out to market. And when they do, they treat it like it's a Sunday morning brunch. They're buying the donuts and the coffee and you know, stuff like that. They're not looking seriously at the nutrition, and they wander around and there's not as many. And we live in the fruit belt. This is second only to San Fernando Valley, and it's going to be skimpy this year, very skimpy. A lot of destruction. My grapes are doing beautifully. That's it. So,
David, how do you think that this 2024 presidential election is going to shape up? And is it going to make a difference who becomes president, if anyone becomes president?
Yeah, with the natural cataclysms coming in and this ozone depletion event and the food shortages, I mean, it's a uniparty system anyway. I mean, if you can't see that or haven't seen that, I mean, this illusion of choice A or choice B, that things will change. And since I've been alive, and I'm sure everybody here, it's always been that same direction. Always, everything continues to move wherever like you say, the moneyed families of the world want it to move in the direction. There's never, the illusion is all there for see. It's great when the illusion works, but that social contract has been broken in this last probably 3 years. And now with going into a depression, and I'm talking a financial depression, the supply chains in our complex systems for delivery have completely broken down. The amount of food factory fires is now over 1,600 here in America, which makes no sense. Used to have like 2 or 3 per year that would burn down statistically over 50 years. And now there's 1,600 in this last 2 years. Opportunity for jobs. And then with the introduction of AI wiping everybody's opportunities out, like the social construct is completely shattered. The illusion, the belief in the illusion, I could believe some of the violence is coming from that because nobody believes that their life can be improved, that it's all that person, that person. Now they got everybody pointing fingers at the reason their lives are bad. Instead of looking at the central banking, the switch over to systems from the LIBOR system into SOFR, that 0.02% of 1% at $600+ quadrillion equals national economies of the entire planet for years on end. Where does that money get made up? They're not going to lose money. The banks aren't going to lose money. Central banks aren't going to lose money. These aristocratic families aren't going to take the loss. You, me, the taxpayers are going to get milked for every cent to make up that difference on the changeover of systems. So when you start to see it cascading downward, it's going to be whoever's going to decide to run in this madness is going to have quite a few things to pretend with. But I really look at it as, will it be AI generated candidates or will it be real? And, like you said, pushing your hand through blue screens. You see backdrops where there's suddenly a swing in the backdrop behind the White House. Like, what are they even there? Or is this all completely a giant stage playing a set that we're supposed to believe the illusion? We're supposed to believe that there's powers. We're supposed to believe that these people could come out and confiscate this or confiscate that. But really, they've already run to their underground safe space because they know what's inbound 2024.
I don't know about
rambling.
you.
I'll stop.
I don't know about you guys, but I have a little bit of faith in Robert Kennedy Jr. Wayne, I know that you're really on the political area here. What do you think about Robert Kennedy Jr. now running for president?
He's a real threat. He's a smart guy, and he's got motivation on his side. He has a vendetta to settle, and but I don't think it's ever going to be there. I mean, if there is a 2024, wow, it's I don't see how there can be without it being postponed or canceled due to a national emergency. And that is one of the contingencies when I worked with the Fed that we looked at, because, the movement of money, whether it's digital or hard currency, still has to go on. There's going to be some sort of commerce. Government has continuity of government. So, yeah, I mean, the political contacts that I still in contact with, they're worried. And we've mentioned it here. We're running up the deficit. It can't be paid back. No, everyone knows in Washington, it's never going to get paid back. So if it's never going to get paid back, what's going to replace it? Well, the thing about digital currency is that, it's digital. Let's get real into this. I think that there is going to be part of this digital rollout. There will be some sort of countermeasure for the consumer, because credit cards and all that system has to be completely redone. I think that we're really looking at some sort of a digital ID. They're already talking about it.
Jay, sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
No, and I'll be one of those who won't take it. And the only reason, if you're not going to take it, you're going to have to, then they're immediately going to know that if you didn't take it, most likely you're a prepper. I mean, it's already an executive order that Clinton signed. I mean, excuse me, it was Clinton, yeah, that you really can't have more than 3 days worth of food legally.
Okay.
And
I'm
so
gonna have
if
to-
you refuse the digital
for the
mark,
record.
they're going to know that you most likely have something that you're falling back on.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'll leave it up for there. You could really write a play script on this one, Jay.
Jay, with us just making this film about the Kennedy family, essentially, how do you feel about RFK Jr. running for president? You think that's going to make a difference? You think that he will get the nomination?
No, no, he won't get the nomination. But it is interesting that we have two candidates that sound like Alex Jones. I think that's really interesting. Trump and RFK. Trump won't be allowed to be in either. They're not going to allow that. It'll be literally over his dead body. I'm not going to allow it. Like I said, they can't go back. They can't go back now. They've gone too far. That's what the alien thing is. I want to keep the facade going and keep it going until they do their event. And I think their event is get out of Dodge as soon as things start getting hairy, so I think that's what's going on. I don't think there's going to be anything. If there is an election, it'll be all fake and nothing will change. And the one thing we have to come to grips with is that we're watching theater, and that's all we're watching. There's really nothing of substance there. My old friend Jordan Maxwell always said, it's not the election, it's the selection. And I think that's what it is. So,
Wow.
Hey, Jay, could I ask a question about how good is the AI right now? Like, really, how many people in positions of power are actually in the offices that they say they are? Because after COVID, everything's been closed down. You can't go here. You can't enter the office building. You have to make an appointment online. You have to chat with, on Zoom or something. Like, in a total percentage of 100% of people that are in elected positions, how many of them are really out in the public sphere? Are they all down in these preparatory bunkers getting ready ahead of, like you say, when the wave comes, they're going to be scattered to the wind, but the perception that they're still around guiding things, pressing buttons, marching orders, doing this, doing that. I mean, what are we really witnessing?
I think that's where we're going. We're going to see all the politicians are going to be AI generated. You're not going to see any more handshaking. You really don't see it anymore anyway, if you think about it. We're doing this film on the Kennedy assassination. We have a whole bunch of shots of Jackie and Jack, shaking hands in Dallas and all that. And you don't see that anymore if you think about it. You don't see the president going out and meeting tons of people and big crowds or anything. I mean, he did with Trump, but I mean, generally over the last 20 years or so, you've seen it's all become disengaged, and that's on purpose because they really are just doing a lot of theater and the occult and intelligence. They're all kind of a mixed up cocktail. And I think that's what we're seeing here is a mixture of theater, intelligence agencies, and some criminal elements all mixed together, manufacturing a reality that we all fall for. And they want to make sure we never awaken to see that. That's what they want more than anything else, is to make sure that we never see the false reality that they are creating for us.
Too bad. We see it.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
the downside is if this collapses, and I mean, no plan is perfect, no plan lasts forever. And I don't think that these people are that bright. And when this thing collapses, and listen, the only way that this scenario works out is that it has to collapse. I mean, they're going. One scenario that I know personally that we went over when I worked with the Fed was that we went one where they suspended the Constitution. Now, if you suspend the Constitution, then, people will find out why a flag, an American flag, has gold gild around it, because then maritime law comes into place. And with maritime law, most people don't realize, but the foundation of maritime law is martial law. Something's going to have to trigger all this.
Yeah. So DC is a separate country from the rest of the country.
It is, yeah.
Run by maritime law, where the rest of the country is run by the law of the land, the Constitution.
Yep.
And So DC has bought up land all across the West here in Colorado. Over 50% of Colorado is owned by DC, and it's the best land in the state. So they have the money to pay off the debt because they'll just confiscate that land and sell it. And believe me, it will go for a lot of money. So I think we're probably more headed towards some kind of confiscation of land to try to trigger a crisis, a constitutional crisis where the Constitution is outlawed, and then they begin the confiscation of the land to pay off the debt. Because remember, if you live in Florida or Colorado or Tennessee or wherever, you're not responsible for that debt. That's DC that's responsible for borrowing that money. Colorado didn't borrow that money.
Dragon Day all over.
I could split a hair on that too. I'm just wondering, with this new issuance of the digital dollar, that's not a US dollar. It's something different. It's a different form of currency. It may have the same name, but the digital aspect of it, the new issuance of it, is completely separate from what we understand as Treasury issued or Fed issued dollars that we have in circulation on the greenback paper. That's completely different and separate. So how does that play into, that debt that you just mentioned there?
Well, I think that DC wants to own the whole country. That's what we're looking at here. And they don't want us to have our individual rights, our ability to own land and all of that. And so that's where we're headed. And we're coming to this, and we're all gonna have to decide what we're gonna do about it. And like I said, don't come on my land. I mean it.
I wouldn't come into my part of the country. Your sorry ass ain't even getting off the interstate, man. That's all I got to tell you. We would literally, where I live, we would form a barricade because there's only a couple of roads that go in and out, north, south, and east, west. They did it back when the medical emergency happened, oddly enough, when there was uprising in the city to the east of us. And I actually see that happening. I really do. I mean, Everybody here has pow-pows. Everybody.
We have contingency plans where I live, where there's one way in, one way out. We've got.
You see, that's what I'm talking about. There's the threat. That's the threat. And David, and Penny, with you guys growing, I mean, we're growing food too, but it sounds like y'all have a good production going. That can be easily that's why I tell people don't fly American flag over your property, because basically in a state of emergency, you've just simply said, here's my house, everything I have is yours.
Yeah, that does concern me. I have seen Michigan splitting right down the middle from Mackinac down to Jackson, and that's it. The east side goes with the crazies and the west side is like, you come on our land, we'll do the same thing you and Jay are talking about. Boom.
I mean, I feel like the rat, forget the cheese. Just get me the hell out of the trap.
I see calls. I'm watching and hearing and reading calls for people to stand up all of a sudden. It's like this has gone on long enough. And that typically starts about 6 months to a year before what Jay just did, before this happens.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It was about 2 months ago. I noticed that there was kind of this common sense of, okay, I've had enough of this nonsense. And it's like all my friends and everybody were just, okay, that's it, we're done. I'm not sure what triggered it, but I definitely saw a wave hit of, we are so done with this. Yep.
I want Leave It the Beaver come back. I want to go live in that neighborhood,
Good luck.
I want black and white television.
Oh my.
Traveling by steam freighter. Oh, bring back the days, right?
We've talked a little bit about the catalyst of this and what the catalyst is going to be: a financial collapse, a uprising, a civil war, food shortages. And in my thoughts and my ideas, and logically and critically, when I'm thinking about it, I think that all those are really good ways to get people in an uproar, right? But whatever the event is, it has to be blamed on the public. It has to be blamed on us. That's the only way that they can get away with doing any of that, is if they're able to turn it around and make us the enemy. And they're like,
That's
oh, look,
right.
look what you guys have done. You guys have collapsed it. You guys have caused this havoc and destruction. It's your fault.
That's why we can't react.
Yep.
We just can't. We can't react. Yes, you have to follow the laws if someone invades your property, but we can't do anything to cause them to push the switch and cause a constitutional crisis. We just can't. We have to completely, I would stay home. To be honest with you, staying home is probably a really good idea right now.
I think we should all just, and this is a message that I've gotten from my people, is sit down and don't participate. Don't go anywhere, don't spend any money, don't buy anything, don't, get any gas, don't make their systems work. And I keep waiting for some people to say that's a perfect nonviolent thing that we could do, and it would be very effective. It would only take a couple of days, and it'd be all over for them. If they want to have a world that they can control people, and we don't want to play in their world, well, they need to find another world. We're not in theirs.
Absolutely. I agree. Wayne, do you have any thoughts on this?
We really are reaching a crossroads in here. I tell people all the time, the thing that I know that this is being planned is that there's no counter message in the mainstream media of unity, peace, love. I mean, I come from the Woodstock generation, in the midst of the Vietnam War and Nixon and the whole upheaval of our government, we had one thing going amongst ourselves, and that was, we had the love-ins. We had this thing called rock and roll, but we as a culture, we found that unity. There's no unity talk today. There's no talk of hands across the country, what we did in the 80s with Michael Jackson and all the entertainers. I mean, there's no message of hope. And that's not natural. That's unbalanced. Something is causing that when you're completely obliterating a potential way to unify people instead of finding ways to divide them.
Yep, that's what's going on. Hey, listen, I got to get going here.
Yeah, I'm about to wrap it up. I guess David, I don't know if something's going on with his computer, if he jumped off. I knew he had to go soon. Penny, let people know where they can find you online, my dear. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, on Patreon, Penny Kelly, just my name, www.pennykelly.com or Patreon/Penny Kelly. BitChute, Rumble, I have books on Amazon. Yeah, I teach classes, all kinds of stuff. So come on over.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Penny. Jay, where can they find you online?
jweidner.com. Reality Check is a show I got on YouTube. And Ryder and I have an incredibly exciting movie coming out called JFKX, Solving the Crime of the Century, in which we explain exactly what happened on November 22nd, 1963, for the first time ever. And no one's ever said what we're saying in this film. Super exciting.
Oh, wow.
We're talking Oliver Stone type stuff, man. This is cool stuff, man.
Better than Oliver Stone.
There we go.
In our movie. Oliver Stone is actually mentioned in the movie. So
And when is it coming out?
probably within a month. We're real close to getting it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. Wayne, where can they find you, my friend?
Our Wayne Steiger on YouTube, Rumble, and all the rest of them. Yeah.
Awesome. All the links to everyone that was in the panel today will be in the description of the video. I highly recommend going and subscribing to all these people's channels. And David DuByne's channel is Adapt 2030, which is also in the description of this video. For everyone else, thanks for watching and listening. Much love to everyone in the chat. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button, help the channel and the YouTube algorithm, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep loving your heart for everyone. Stay safe out there. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Cool.
All
Penny,
right.
I got to have you on the channel.
Oh, I